Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for another video on Marvel Contest of Champions. This one is focused on a champion that I'm dusting off and trying to use a little bit more, especially because a lot of new synergies have made her a little bit more impressive, even though she was already impressive to begin with. Yes, the topic of discussion of this video is Guillotine. Going back through my videos, I have covered the champion in a comic book history, but things, even with the comic book history, there is a little bit more to this character as well. So she's been in some new runs of things with the Secret Empire, so there's a few things to cover in a moment. Also, I did an interview with Al Ewing, who is the creator of Guillotine. It's a really interesting interview, so go to the link in the description, it'll take you to there. And we talk about things like a movie, further expanding on the story, Marvel Contest of Champions, Kabam. You know, it was a really interesting watch, so give it a watch. But now all of that out of the way, I want to focus on explaining why this champion is so amazing, and also she has some amazing synergy groupings to her, especially in the last year. For those that don't know much about Guillotine, I'm going to explain a bit about the character's backstory, and then we're going to get into some gameplay and talk about the viability of the champion. Now, how the story goes is at the age of 12, Janine Sauvage was lured into a room that was normally locked, and in a chest she found a sword. The sword's name is the Fleur de la Mort. This sword has a lot of history to it, but it is very bloodthirsty and has a link to souls and a bloodline of a family. Well, what happens now, she slits her finger on the sword and it started to bleed. This then attracted the bloodthirsty nature of the sword, and the link was then there forged. Mainly the sword had been done for evil deeds, but for whatever reason it decided to have more of a good intention with Janine at the helm, and also taking up the mantle and the name of the vigilante, Guillotine. As the story continues, Guillotine is involved with many missions, but one in particular is to capture the Imprince. Nextly, she is called out by Marc Joubert, who is a police inspector and also Janine's fiancé. A few things happened, and in particular, it's a case that Janine does doubt what she's doing with the sword and how the sword controls her. Then, all of a sudden, she's abruptly attacked by a summoner, and she's taken to the battle realm in order to partake in the Collector and the Grandmaster's Contest of Champions. How the Contest of Champions saga ends is with Janine returning to her home reality, accompanied by Outlaw. Now they both go back to England, which is obviously kind of weird considering that France is her home. And so they form a team. They decide they're going to form a team together, which would later come to pass as the Champions of Europe. Champions of Europe were formed in order to take down Hydra's threat in Europe, and in particular got some great involvement with rescuing Squirrel Girl and Enigma. So yes, they did indeed help save the day. It's still my hope at a later date that the character does get more of a representation in comic books, and it would be nice to consider maybe one day that there'll be some sort of film or maybe even TV series. But these are very wishful thinking things, and sometimes the favourite character that you have doesn't always get that limelight. Let's go back to Rich in the game in order to get some more ability information. Okay, back in the game, let's talk about abilities and let's talk about synergy groupings. Now, it has been a long time since the character was first introduced, and there's so many decent things that have been added in, mainly with synergy improvements that we really need to talk about. There are several brilliant things going for the character, and the character isn't too complex, which is absolutely amazing, and the damage output is pretty darn insane as well, which is kind of weird to think about it, that still champion will be viable like this, but it's the synergies that have been recently added that make this champion so much more fun to play. And yeah, it was pretty fun to begin with, but it's incredibly fun now. Here is that synergy group on the left hand corner. I've got Night Thrasher, Gamora, Venom and Morningstar. Not so much with Venom, but the other ones are the things that pad the champion together to make it absolutely amazing. Also, the astute among you will also notice that I've gone through Winter Soldier and Captain Marvel without any loss of health to Guillotine, and why that's so important will obviously come to light as we talk further about the character. So first of all, why Gamora? Well, Gamora is very important. If she's bleeding an opponent, if Guillotine is bleeding an opponent, then she's got a 50% chance to gain a soul charge, and one of the key aspects is building soul charges, especially because you want to be able to build a load of them in order to damage output a lot more, even with the bleeds. The bleeds are great, but also you want to concentrate on building soul charges. The Night Thrasher synergy, you're adding 100 critical rating for every soul charge on there, and there's a reason that I decided to build up to 10. So 10 times 100 1,000 critical rating when I'm putting in an L3. That's the plan and strategy I was trying to do. Also, we want to prolong those soul charges. So one thing when I was building up to 10 soul charges was to make sure that they were there for as long as possible. Now, usually they would expire quite quickly, so having that extra 10 seconds is really important for me. And I just threw Venom in just for the extra bit here. If there's improvements with synergies in the future, then I'll be pretty happy. Especially because we could potentially be getting a link to her and a further synergy by sometime this year. So that's quite exciting because it could replace Venom in this lot and it could be really powerful. So imagine her being as powerful as she is now, but in the future she's going to be absolutely amazing. I might have slightly gone off on a tangent there. Let's explain why all those things are coming together to make this character so powerful. And also over the top, I'm going to be showing some footage of just absolutely demolishing off an L3 whilst I build up those soul charges. Now, one thing you're going to see from the footage, and obviously the reason that I talked about the idea that the champion had full health by the point of going through 2 Realm of Legends bosses, is that that is pretty impressive. She's not only been able to demolish the competition, as we're going to see in a moment, but also the fact that she's able to regenerate a good amount. Now, do you need up to signature 40 for this? Not so much, but I would recommend it's always good to have an awakening on this character. And I definitely think as a mystic is one of the most powerful. Now, people would say necessarily not with that, but with a good synergy in mind, yes, I think she's definitely up there as one of the top ones. Now, what am I finding quite so special? As we've talked about, the way that the synergies work by building up those soul charges, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build up those soul charges. Also mixing in together the synergy with Night Thrasher, because as well, we want to get that critical rating improved. Remember, 100 times 10 souls. By utilizing the Morningstar synergy, we can keep those souls on for longer, and then building up to hitting through a very powerful L3. So as it says here, the sword consumes all available souls and deals 2% of the opponent's health in direct damage per soul consumed. Like I said, coupled with the fact that we're also building up the critical rating with the Night Thrasher synergy, it does mean for some amazing damage, and you're seeing huge percentages taken off the enemy, especially against Winter Soldier, against Cat Marvel. Yeah, absolutely amazing. And yet you can build past the 10 if you want, but at the same time, it's a case of like you want to be able to finish the fight quickly. So do you hit out for a load of time and then go, right, well, I got the enemy at 50%. Then it's a case I've got like a hell of a load of souls on, of course. But obviously for the purpose of just going, right, well, not everybody is going to have a huge health pool you're going up against. It's nice to be able to build them up and then, you know, hit him fairly frequently, especially considering that on average, most new bosses that have been put into the game have a health pool of about 150k. So it's kind of a case you don't really want to be spending quite so much of the battle actually building up soul charges. You want to see that as soon as you reach the L3 that you're able to go bang, hit out. And also there will be some circumstances where you'll be power drained. So it's kind of a case you have to quickly build up to that. So incredibly viable, but also do box clever for how many soul charges you build up as to when you want to hit in your L3. The great thing about Guillotine is you don't need to overly concentrate on building up souls quite so much, as there's going to be things that are going to be going in the background that are really helpful. Now, it's great to get that regen, and I have obviously shown the extensive regen that you can get back is just amazing. But also the champion does punish those that regenerate themselves. For example, taking this champion into Realm of Legends is really good against a champion like Wolverine, who gets extensive regeneration. Hitting in a special 2 reverses the effects of healing to a point that it can literally devastate anything that hugely regenerates. But also the champion benefits from extensive and impressive bleeds. So you get a 50% chance if you hit a crit to inflict 1,474 bleed damage over 4.5 seconds. Now, this is, again, just absolutely incredible. Now, at this point, it's a great shame for me that I only have a 4-star version of Night Thrasher, because I'd really like to think about the idea of using Guillotine in Act 6. Especially the idea of even getting one day a 6-star version of this is going to be absolutely amazing. But getting a 5-star Night Thrasher may be my next port of call, just to kind of create this cool synergy group. Gamora as a 6-star and Gamora as a champion nowadays is absolutely brilliant. Shame she's only in as a 4-star and a 6-star. But at the same time, having something like a Venom If it's great for a synergy group, Night Thrash is still a great champion and good for a synergy group. Morningstar, you know, this questing team is something that I think players would probably go, do you know what, it's actually not too bad. I could see definite usage for this questing team in general in the future, especially if we come across something where we require to use all of these champions. Morningstar is an epic questing champion. And as well, you've got Venom, who's been recently buffed. There's so many incredible options for players, especially around a synergy group like this. But you don't need to have everybody. Initially, it is all about Night Thrasher, but secondly, it's all about keeping those souls on for longer by keeping Morningstar in. If for whatever reason you were looking then for another champion to take out the equation, then it would be a case of taking out Gamora. Although I really rate the fact that if you're bleeding off with Guillotine against an enemy, then you want to be able to build those souls faster. So this is the absolute limit of the synergy team if you're going to put two other champions in, but I would recommend having in Gamora with this, especially as a 4-star champion. Sucks that she's not a 5-star because obviously we'd like to use that in Act 6. It honestly felt quite good to take an old champion and try to see what new synergies have been provided to them to see if they're viable in the current meta of the game. I definitely think that Guillotine is an option in the future for different content, but at the same time, I do rate her for usage in things like Act 5, so that regeneration is always quite helpful. There's also other content as well, but I think mainly that she can have some amazing usage in the future. Just hopefully Kabam doesn't scale things really ridiculously in Act 6. Now that has been a video all about Guillotine. If you did enjoy this video, then hit the like button, subscribe for Marvel Contest of Champions based content, share it amongst a friend. Also drop into the Discord, my RichTheMan Discord, because we do have video requests area and you can request a different champion to look at. And I'll try and look at it a bit more detail and see whether or not it's good within the current meta of the game. Identify the synergies. By the way, shout out to marvelsynergy.com. It's a great website that allows you to look at synergies of different champions, and it also is great for me for researching videos. Finally, if you'd like to support me as a creator and support the channel, then please consider hitting the join button. It does cost per month, but it does really help me out pay the bills as a creator. So yeah, drop into a live stream as well, and I shall catch you in the next one. Bye bye for now.